Hey everybody, welcome back to Just Around the Corner. Today I have with me Donna Hunter. She is the founder of Global Therapy here in Northwest Arkansas. Donna, glad you're here and excited to talk more about global therapy and what you guys are doing.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like right off the bat, tell us about how you became a counselor and then how did global therapy kind of spring out of that? I'm sure that's like a loaded question, but
I've always wanted to work with people. I mean, being as a kid, I was the one that my friends would come to, or I always seemed to have the answer, right? I became a social worker basically because my mother told me, my mother, who was a registered nurse and um, was in nursing education at one of the VAs, said that psychologists were a dime a dozen,
mm-hmm.
and that to be a social worker meant that you would have a lot of opportunities to basically do whatever you wanted in the field of helping people. And being a social worker, we're kind of educated to serve everybody and be very poor while we're doing it. So I got a lot of experience in agencies where I could do, the face-to-face counseling thing. I was a program director. We did home visits. We did programming for that was very specific for a community. So I had a lot of awesome experiences. Um, in 1997, I decided to do private practice full time. I'd been doing it part time probably for about 3 or 4 years and knew that that's really where my heart was. I really like to be my own boss and not have to deal with all of the agency politics and things like that. So I started out in Florida, and global therapy was just mine. And then while I was in Florida, I had a small group. We then decided to move, my husband and I moved to Arkansas, down towards Fort Smith. I was there for, oh gosh, we were there for 9 years. And then we moved to Idaho just prior to COVID. I worked for an agency. It seemed like this was the dream job. It was to be a director of a clinic. I would only have a few clients. I was supervising. COVID hit, wiped out the program, just
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
So I came back. Our son had moved to the Bentonville area. And so I figured, well, I was 39 years in the business. It was time to go big or go home. So we started a group up here. Right now, there are 6 of us, 4 in the office in Bentonville, and then I have 2 that are actually in Idaho, but they do all telehealth for Arkansas clients. And we're hoping to fill up one other office this summer. So I am looking to hire, just
Yeah.
putting that out there. And this is a trauma practice. Everyone here, their number one specialty is trauma. Everyone in this office has been certified in EMDR.
Mm.
And then we each have our own subspecialties. I work with really chaotic, toxic families and codependency, where Nick works with a lot of substance abuse. Jeff does couples, Stephanie does neurodivergence, Bonnie, if she could, out in Idaho, she would work with the littles, but she does a lot of grief and loss. And then Vicky is great at launching those, 18 to 25-year-olds off into the big bad world.
That's amazing. Wow. I just love the plethora of experience and just training that you have and that your team has. And you're just a well-seasoned therapist, is what I'm gathering, which is always needed. And so, I love too, like you mentioned that you're hiring. And so I'm curious, even for those listening and who are maybe just getting into the field or have been in it for a while and are looking for something new. Tell us a little bit more about who could apply and kind of what you guys are looking for.
Okay, well, we're looking for somebody that has had experience with working with the trauma population. Ideally, it would be somebody with the terminal licensed, an LCSW or an LPC, because we do get a lot of Medicare and TRICARE clients. But I am willing to bring in an LMSW so that I can supervise.
Mm.
Unfortunately, LACs, they don't let social workers supervise an LAC.
Right.
But definitely someone who already has experienced the trauma population.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know, and good to know for all those listeners who are interested or who might stumble.
Mhm.
So yeah, it sounds like great opportunities there. And really, again, like I just want to share how neat it is that there's such a diverse array of people at your practice who are working with different populations, and sounds like it all complements each other well, to where you're able to target the community and all the different needs and arenas that people face, which is so valuable.
Well, what I like particularly about our group is that, yes, we spend a lot of time in our office all by ourselves working with clients, but we collaborate a lot. We do regular staffings. It's not uncommon for us to share clients depending on what happens to be going on with somebody, or, if I'm seeing somebody, but there are some relationship issues and they want to come in as a couple, we're able to do that all within the confines of global therapy. I think that what's kind of special about our practice is that my focus has always been on the relationship we create with our clients. And studies have shown that it's that relationship beyond our expertise, beyond, what we know or however many letters we have behind our name, we have to have that connection.
Mm,
And all of our clients are told from the get-go, if they don't feel connected by the end of that first intake session, no harm, no foul. Let us know so we can get them referred to somebody that they can connect with,
mm,
whether that's within the practice or without, outside of the practice. We want to make sure that clients who either, this is their first time ever getting therapy or they've gotten therapy before, we want to make sure that this particular experience is going to be the best one for them.
mm. Yeah, that's so good. And just being able to have collaboration within the practice, but also really just prioritizing the client's needs, and
Mhm.
whether that's, inside global therapy or not, you really want to make a solid connection with that person and really have an accurate picture of what it is that they're needing and properly assess how to move forward with them.
Mhm.
um, which is so great, and I think is very freeing for clients. I know that I will have friends who are like, "Oh, it's just so hard to like break up with a therapist, or I don't know how to like pick one, or I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings." And I think what you're saying is, hey, my goal is for you to get what you need.
Right,
And that's the utmost priority. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings no matter what that
right,
looks like. And
right.
which is, I think, builds a lot of safety whether you continue with that person or not. And so that's
Mhm.
valuable.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm.
And I would rather have that than for a client just to not show up.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, because then that person ends up having to do it on their own, when really I think the heart of therapy is saying, we don't have to do this alone, and we want to be
Exactly.
with you. Um, and so, yeah, it's really meaningful when clients give us the opportunity to help them transition into a new phase or walk with them in whatever it is they're going through,
Mhm.
whether that's building a long-term therapeutic relationship or not. Um,
Right.
so that's really good. And Tell me a little bit about you've talked about some of your focus areas of working with families and trauma, and you mentioned that you have training in EMDR. Um, Tell us a little bit more about how you got into that, and then even just within that, kind of how you would define that process of therapy.
Okay, how I got into trauma. My very first job was in a very rural part of Maine. It was basically in the middle of the woods, a little tiny town. When I got there in 83, they were just getting their first McDonald's.
Wow.
So, and the
Wow.
town that I lived in had a flashing red light and a Sears and Roebuck catalog store. Okay,
Wow.
very rural. But before I could accept the job, I had to read a book called The Beans of Egypt, Maine.
Mm,
Okay, because the supervisor there wanted to make sure that I truly understood that the clients who were coming in were highly, highly traumatized.
mm,
Um,
mm,
Generational incest, poverty. If you've ever seen the accidents that can happen from the logging industry, people without limbs,
mm,
it was all there. It was all there. And that and substance abuse was huge. Um, and that was a population that, after reading the book, I felt like this is incredibly interesting, right? But then once I got there, I felt very connected to,
mm,
that was, from my very young experience, to me, that was the deepest level of horror that somebody could go through.
mm,
And it was really an honor to be able to be there with them through all of that. From there, I went into a sexual abuse program that I think the person directing that program meant well because he was really focused on reunification.
mm.
Um, I'm not sure that that was the best thing to do, but I was brand new. How did I know?
Yeah.
And so my clinical jobs or my agency jobs always sort of ended up in not only trauma, poverty, a lot of rural work. When I got to Florida, I worked for a large, the statewide daycare system for migrants. A lot of trauma, a lot of trauma there. And then I went to the Child Abuse Council. So I just sort of followed programs that focus on trauma and substance abuse. I became certified to work with substance abuse when I was in Florida. I realized the piece that I really attached to was not the active user, but it was the family members and the effects substance abuse had on the family members.
Mm,
Um, while I was in Florida, probably my best education came from being referred a DID client. And I got that call and they said, oh yeah, we've dealt with all the DID stuff. We just need to have you do the finishing work. That was not true.
yeah.
Not true.
Yeah.
Um, and from that, I mean, I traveled to programs that specialized in DID and hospitals like the McLean Clinic and what was it, Timberlawn out in Texas. I learned how to really coordinate with a team, not only of providers, but family members in who were all trying to keep this individual connected and try to move through her trauma. It was without a doubt the greatest learning experience I ever had.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and so I've taken that to, what I lived in a tiny town outside of Fort Smith. all 4,000 people. Lots of drugs, lots of cooking meth and everything else. In Florida, it was crack. I learned all about meth up here. Um, I just followed it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, what a vast array of experiences there. And I think that's encouraging to, like, I would be encouraged as a client coming in of knowing, like, okay, like, I can't scare you or say something that you
Oh,
haven't
no.
haven't heard, but also for your team and the people who are working in that practice with you of you're bringing such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you all are collaborating together, and you all have your own experiences within personally,
Mhm.
professionally, and it just seems like a very rich environment for clients to step into.
Yeah, in fact, like last week during our staff meeting, we were talking about the differences between complex PTSD and autism,
Mm,
and that we'll have clients who come in. I have one right now who is insistent it's autism. She's been evaluated. They said it wasn't autism, but she insists it's autism. But the similarities between what happens in complex PTSD and autism are pretty incredible.
mm,
And it is hard to kind of parse it out, but somebody will go on Google and type in autism and they'll have all of these symptoms and say, yep, that puts a label on me and I feel comfortable having that label because I know that I didn't do it. Well, when it's trauma, you didn't do it either,
hey, yeah,
but
yeah.
somehow that's a little easier to wrap your head around.
Yeah, well, and I think what you're saying is so good because there is such a like wealth of knowledge just with social media, with the internet, and we as consumers now more than ever need to be so mindful of the information that
Yes.
we're taking in and the sources that we're getting that from. And so,
Mhm.
one, it's great that the people within your practice are constantly getting informed, getting training, and that you're able to provide that for clients is, hey,
Mhm.
like, I'm glad that you're curious about what's going on. Let's dig a little bit deeper because Google doesn't know you, doesn't know your story, doesn't have a like clinical training background. And so let's talk more.
Yeah.
Which yeah, is so great. And I think especially like just even in my own practice, I've noticed more people have been like, yeah, I think I have this. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, where did you learn that? And they're like, oh, on TikTok. And I'm like, well, TikTok can be a real
Yes.
way to learn things. And also, we have to be mindful of its disadvantages and that it's not a credible source.
Yeah. It used to be WebMD. And
Yeah,
all of their information came from WebMD. And it's like, yeah, mm, no, no, let's talk about you in particular.
right. Yeah, because even like within a certain diagnosis, there are specific criteria, but the way that can manifest can be so unique for each individual that it really does take individualized care to properly
Mhm.
diagnose and treat different things that are going on. And so that just calls to even more of a need of like, if people are experiencing something where they feel stuck or they don't know what's going on, like it is so normal and good to seek professional help, to not have to wonder and make guesses, and to start convincing yourself that it's something and treating it when it might actually not
Mhm.
be. Um,
Exactly.
so that's really
Yeah.
good. So within that, like if a client's coming in and is like, all right, what is this whole counseling thing? What would you say to them?
Um, I say to them that it is an hour all about you.
Mm,
That I'm not your friend. I'm not your relative. I'm not going to just say to you the things that make you happy,
mm,
right? The things that make you pleased. That I am not a therapist that will say, how do you feel about that?
Mm.
And force you to kind of figure it out yourself. I'm the kind of therapist that will say what I know, what I think, and most importantly, what I hear you saying.
Mm.
Because very often we will say things and we're like, wow, did that just come out of my mouth? What was I thinking? I'm also the kind of therapist for the right person. Um, well, to put it better, I had a client back in Florida, and when I would kind of give him a zinger on something, he would throw his baseball hat on me, just toss it over to me.
Uh-huh.
And so one day he picked up one of my business cards and he looked at it and said, the tagline, it says creative solutions for life's challenges. And he said, no, that's not the right tagline for you. Well, really, what should it be? He goes, for a good ass kicking. Like, okay. So I can be direct. I definitely give people homework and things to think about in between. But that's just me, right? Whereas Nick always gives homework, always. Jeff really gets, because he works with a lot of couples, gives them different ways to communicate together that obviously you have to practice it because you've been doing this other thing for so long. Stephanie is such a wealth of knowledge, as far as how the brain works and all the chemistry behind it. And it's like, walking into a science lab every time. Bonnie, it does a lot of art with people and has people bringing art in with them. Vicky also does a lot of homework, but it's a lot of skill-based, like DBT kinds of things that she has people working on. So we all do something different and we approach people in a different way. I probably am the most aggressive of everyone. Just say it.
And, I usually tell clients when they first come in, or even just friends asking, it's like finding a therapist is like dating. You're going to come,
Absolutely.
you're not. And some people really want that up front. You know,
Hmm.
we're not going to sugarcoat anything. Here's how it is. And then
Hmm.
other people want something more of like,
They
let's,
need things a lot softer.
yeah, let's get a lot more soft. And so, yeah, there's just different angles, different personalities and
Hmm.
stuff of that. Just even the different people who are at global therapy are
Hmm.
bringing diversity to the table, and that gives
Right.
people space to be themselves, and they can say, you know what, I didn't really click with Nick, but I really like what Bonnie's doing over there. I'm gonna,
Hmm.
or whatever. And
Exactly.
that's really
Exactly.
um well, I'm curious, outside of like running a group practice and seeing clients and just all of those things, are there any other projects that you're working on or things that you're involved in that people can get connected to?
Well, right now, I'm in the process of writing a book, and I am looking for other folks because it's all about toxic families and how to deal with having a relationship with a toxic family. And since I use analogy often with how to describe certain things within a family system. I'm looking for people who have other analogies that they use and that have been successful with their clients. And I'm looking for more of that how things have worked, you know, more experiences, not like, this client went through this, this, and this, but more of this is how I approached it.
Mm.
Because I think that it's very valuable to clients to be able to have that information. It's one thing to have the list of symptoms, but to know that there are so many different ways to approach dealing with those very difficult relationships.
Mm. That's awesome. Well, that's really exciting. Want to stay connected to that. And for those who are interested in connecting with you or global therapy or just wanting to learn more or even apply for a job, how can they get connected to you?
Best way is through email, and it can be either admin@global-therapy.com or directly to me, Donna@global-therapy.com.
Amazing. Well, sounds like there are a lot of ways that people in just all spheres of life can get connected. And I'm really glad that Northwest Arkansas has you guys.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think I feel lucky, especially knowing that you've been kind of everywhere. And
I
so
have.
you chose Arkansas, like that doesn't happen often. So,
Actually, there's a story to that.
okay, yeah,
In moving up here from Florida, Florida was just becoming very, because we were in the city in Tampa, and both my husband and I are more rural kinds of people. So we took a trip, looking at different properties, in the South, because he's a Southerner. And when we got into Arkansas, it was that week between Christmas and New Year's, and I was like, this is like my home, which is Western New York, without all the snow.
yeah,
So it was a good fit.
I love that. Yeah. And you're so right. It really is kind of like Western New York, but without all the snow.
Yes.
So I love that. Yeah, that's sweet. Well, glad to know you, Donna, and to be connected and for um, you to be providing what you are to our community. So,
Thanks so much, Sarah. I appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for chatting. And yeah, I'm excited for all that you guys are doing. And I will be keeping an eye out for your book.
All righty. Thanks so much.